Oh, welcome to the Russ Joy Show. I'm Russ Joy. You figured that out because you're smart, and it's also the name of the show. Hello, welcome in. Oh, today's been a day. I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to tell you something that I thought about not telling anyone, but I'll tell you now. I'm trying a fast. I don't know why. I don't know what possessed me to try to do a fast, but something did. I felt moved by the spirit, and so I said, all right, I'm going to try this fasting thing. Now, I like to do intermittent fasting. We're not going to get too far down this rabbit hole to start the show. But I was like, okay, if I typically can go like 14 hours without eating, can I go to like 16 or 18 or what? So right now, I think I'm at, let me do the math here really quick. I'm at like 17 hours. And so I should be able to crush through, or maybe I'm at 18 hours. I should be able to crush through the rest of today, go to sleep, wake up tomorrow, and be at 36 hours. And then I was like, all right, well, if you go 36, then what? And then I found something about like a 72-hour fast. I'm like, well, that sounds insane. Now, I like to eat. I really do. And so the idea that I'm going to hold myself out from eating for 3 days just feels psychotic to me. And then it's like, well, you have to mix in a little bit of salt here and there. You can't do anything where you have like, you could do, some say you can have black coffee, some say you can have herbal tea, but you can't have anything in it. And I'm like, well, I like coffee. Do I like black coffee? No. Do I like herbal tea? Not really, especially on its own. And so I'm at a bit of an impasse right now. I know what the right thing to do. The right thing is to just drink the water and do this for 3 days and come out on the other side and feel significantly better. And apparently there are all kinds of good effects. I don't know. But like, I could patchwork it, right? I could just say, you know what? If I get to 24 hours, I should eat at like 10 o'clock tonight, break my fast, feel good about it. Or I should wake up tomorrow morning and have an egg at like 36 hours and feel really good about it. Good job. I didn't feel fully committed to going all the way to 72 hours, even though it might actually have good health benefits. And even though I kind of know in my heart of hearts, if I'm going to go this far, I may as well go the full 72. I've already put in 18 hours worth. I should go the rest of the way. And if I get to 36, well, then of course I should go to 72. Now, why did I do all of this? And in the meantime of, spewing all this, it occurred to me, it's exactly what the Philadelphia Phillies are doing. Because, make no mistake about it, and we're going to get to it in a little bit, the Phillies are in the midst of a fast. They are in the midst of trying to figure out if they want to go the full 72 hours and have a chance at winning a World Series, or do they want to call it off at 18 hours? Do they want to call it off at 24 hours, 36 hours, 48? Do they want to do it? And in a weird way, I've kind of stumbled upon a pretty decent thing to compare it to, right? The Phillies made a signing on Sunday that on the surface isn't a bad signing. They brought back David Robertson for yet another attempt at being a reliable bullpen arm. And we know how the first stints have gone. It could end up being okay. And then you saw the number floating out. It's a prorated salary, $5 million, based on the full season, be $16 million. Then you have people going, oh, so yeah, Phillies are they're setting a bad example here. $16 million for David Robertson. Are they stupid? It's $5 million. We don't care about what the full contract would have been over the course of an entire season. They go out and they sign a guy who's old, who hasn't exactly been the most reliable when they've brought him in the past. But they are so desperate for bullpen arms and clearly believe that the trade market is so bad right now that the only thing they can do is go out and sign David Robertson. They brought him back $5 million. No sweat off my back. No sweat off your back. Oh, no, what are they going to do? They're going to kill like the only dollar dog night of the year? Oh, no. We'll get Pagan to get on the horn and get Governor Shapiro to shame the Phillies. And they'll bring a dollar dog night back. It'll be fine. But I saw that move and I started to think to myself for today's show, do I want to be angry with the Phillies or do I want to feel like the Phillies are kind of trending in the right direction? And oh, by the way, there was big news that came out today as well about the Flyers, about young Porter Martone, which we're going to get to in a bit. And we have to talk about the resurgence. The power has returned to Bryce Harper. And also, he's publicly called out the fact that, Kyle Schwarber doesn't have a deal beyond this year. So I want to get to all of it. I do, and I see the comments are already filling up, so we're gonna go over here to the comments section. I'm actually let me push this guy over here a little bit. I'm going to push this Johnsky over here, and then we're going to have the comments down here in the bottom left. And like I said the other day, if you feel so moved by the Spirit to leave a super chat, I'll make sure that yours goes to the top of the line. If not, it's okay. I will, have the running tally here, the running comments, and I'll get to as many as I can. But I do want to dive into this Phillies thing. I want to know in the comments section if you agree or disagree with the signing of David Robertson. I need to know if you feel like this is their move. Like, is this the big move that they're going to have? If it is, they're screwed. There's no getting around it. Like, if this is going to be the big move from Dave Dombrowski, then the Phillies are screwed and you may as well just kind of pack it up for the season. As a matter of fact, over on the Russ Joy Show YouTube channel right now, I'm going to put a poll. So if you're watching on Facebook or X, remember you have to hit the video first. Go into old Periscope mode. You can comment there. If you're watching on the Joy Media YouTube channel, you can't participate in this poll. But if you're on the Russ Joy Show one, you certainly can. The question is very simple. Is the David Robertson signing a good one? That's it. I just need to know, is it a good signing? Because I would say on the server, sure. $5 million. I don't give a shit. You give a shit? Nobody should give a shit. This is like one of those things where people like gatekeep the money.
Oh no. What are the Phillies going to do? They put $5 million into David Robertson. The world is going to end. They're now not going to be able to go out and afford a guy that they might have wanted to at the trade deadline. Oh no, $5 million is gone this year. I guess that means Kyle Schwarber can't come back.
Like, what are we doing? Is it a good signing? Is it a bad signing? I don't know. 610-632. Let's go out to the phone lines. I'm sure they're lighting up right now. Let's talk about what David Robertson has been. And then I want to get to Harper. I want to get to Schwarber. And, of course, more than anything, I'd also like to get to the Porter Martone of it all, going to Michigan State, not to Penn State, all that kind of stuff. I want to dive into the numbers here really quickly because I do think that it matters. And we talked about the fact that Robertson has been a Philly in the past. And so it's probably important to kind of take a more holistic view. Remember, back in 2019, the Phillies brought him in. He pitched 7 games, got injured. That was it. 5.40 ERA. It was horrific. He came back in 2022. I think he started the season, if I remember, started the season with the Cubs, ended with the Phillies, put up a 2.7 ERA. It was okay. Wasn't horrible. Wasn't great. He then went on in 2023 to pitch for the Mets and the Marlins, and then last year he spent the entire season with the Rangers. He pitched in 68 games, had a 3 ERA. And on the surface, you say, that's pretty damn good. And even if you go back to 2023 across the Mets and the Marlins, he had like a 3.03 ERA. Is that the worst thing in the world? No. Would I like my critical bullpen arms to probably be sub 3? Yeah, I think I would. But again, at a $5 million value, are we really that upset about it? I'm going to go out to the comments, though, because I want to see where people are at. But I don't see the anger. The anger is going to be if the Phillies don't get another bullpen arm before the trade deadline. We are 10 days away as we record this on July 21st, the year of our Lord, 2020-25. We are 10 big days away. And the Phillies, as I mentioned at the top of the show, are probably about 24 hours into a 72-hour fast. Are they going to go the rest of the way? Or are they going to call it? Are they going to see a commercial for Whopper Wednesday and say, you know what? We're really close to 72 hours, but we're going to pull the plug here at like 64 hours to go get that Whopper with cheese and a nice Coca-Cola, which always tastes better at fast food restaurants, and those crispy hot fries coated in salt that are going to be coming freshly out of the fryer. Are the Phillies going to give up on that 72-hour fast? Or are they going to go and be little hoes for a little Whopper Wednesday? We'll find out. The Dave Dombrowski move to bring in Robertson, to me, isn't offensive, but I do want to know from the people if it's a good or a bad one. So we'll go over to the comments here really quickly. I see people arguing about Martone. We'll talk about that later. That's not a now thing. Poonugs39. How you doing, Poonugs? By the way, Poonugs39, what happened to Poonugs 1 through 38? I want to know how you get to Poonugs, not Poo Logs. Does that say something about your feces? I don't know. We'll find out. Actually, we won't find out. I don't want to find out. But Poonugs, thanks for being here. Says, how does the Robertson signing help the Phils? It gives them another bullpen arm. It's not a lefty. It's not a guy that's going to fundamentally change much for them. It just maybe takes a little bit of pressure off of some of the already burdened arms, and it gives you another guy that in the past has at least been a good, maybe not a great, but a very good reliever at different points in his career. I mean, worth noting, there was a stretch between the Yankees and the White Sox where he posted, 34-plus saves in 3 consecutive seasons. But, that was a long time ago. That was 2014 through 2016. Those days are long gone. Can Robertson be a good, at best, reliever? Yes. Could he be a bad one? Yeah, he's 40. Is it possible that Robertson, who didn't pitch the first half of the season. Is it possible Robertson comes in, never looks right, and then ultimately you're kind of left holding the bag at the end of the season where you go, wow, that was a dog shit signing, and the fact that we put a lot of confidence in that and then we didn't go out and make a trade at the deadline to get another bullpen arm, boy, that looks really bad. That's where the concern actually does have to settle in. So this question is a good one. It's a valid one. It helps them insofar as it's another option, and it's a guy who's been tested before and has had to play for teams that play into October. But the downside is if you overvalue that signing, or if the initial returns, he's been optioned to Lehigh Valley, if he comes up and then all of a sudden, you get between now and the trade deadline, he'll probably get 2 appearances, maybe 2. If he looks good in those 2 appearances and then trade deadline day comes around and Dave Dombrowski says, oh, no, we're happy with him. We think he's the missing piece. And in the back of their minds, they're like, we're going to make Jesus Luzardo and Ranger Suarez bullpen arms. We're going to make them bullpen lefties for the playoffs. And there we go. The bullpen is solved. That won't work. That's a terrible idea. But I've seen a lot of bad decisions from Dave Dombrowski over the last couple of years, especially that make me think, oh, yeah, that's totally in play. 100% in play. Let's see. Christopher Ian says, he is a man. I'm a man. I'm 40. He's 40, all right. Also, okay. Punug says 39. It's for the Dominator. Got it. Peter Tom Willis over on YouTube wants to weigh in on Punugs. Says Punug smoked the first 38 nugs. That's good. I don't think it's a bad signing. I'm going to go over to the poll really quick. Right now, and this poll keeps changing, we're at 53% now. 53% of the people watching on the Russ Joy Show YouTube channel say, yes, it is a good signing. 47% of respondents say, no, it's not a good signing. Wild. Okay. I see there's a thing about it could be fresher. Let's see. Who was Catholic Nono arguing with over here? All right, I got it. Here we go. Justin Chinisi? I want to say Chinisi, but if it's Italian, it'd be Kinichi. You got to let me know. Not Konnichiwa. Says, I'm not saying I care. It's not exactly $5 million, that's all. Because Justin was asking a question about the tax. Says the thing is they're over the tax threshold, so it actually costs them $12 million. I saw something about it. Correct me if I'm wrong, Russ. I have no idea. I'm going to be honest, Justin. 1, I don't know, and 2, I don't care. It's not my money. I don't care what John Middleton has to pay. He's already invested a lot of money in this team. Some people have claimed that he's been cheap since last offseason. I don't care how much it is. Is it 5? Is it 12? It doesn't matter. John Middleton has a lot of money. I care about the strategy, and I care about the logic behind the strategy. And again, if this is ultimately just going to be this is the move, they're fucked. Okay? I know I said they're like screwed before. No, they're fucked. If David Robertson's the only move, pack it up. Start selling things off. Sell Kyle Schwarber to the highest bidder. If you're not committed to actually making a move for a legitimate arm at the deadline for the bullpen, if you're not committed to adding another legitimate bat to this lineup, preferably an outfield bat, pack it up. Sell everything. Have a goddamn fire sale. Because at that point, if you don't have the ability, the chutzpah, the huevos, the assets to make a deal for a bullpen arm and somebody who can actually man the outfield that looks like an outfielder, sounds like an outfielder, hits like an outfielder, and is probably an outfielder, there's no point in playing out the rest of whatever this nonsensical Philly season's supposed to be. I would like to imagine that if Dave Dombrowski were to say, we like our team and we're just not going to make a lot of moves here. We believe in our team. It's a good team. We think that the team is going to be able to compete in October. So we don't want to sell the farm, but we feel good about the team. If that's going to be Dave Dombrowski, I need John Middleton to get a big catapult ready and launch this guy into the sun. And I want to believe that John Middleton, despite the fact that the return on investment for some of these big money signings hasn't exactly gotten to bear fruit yet, and in fairness, may never bear the kind of fruit that we hoped. I have to imagine that there's still the guy in there who once said, get me my fucking trophy back. I want to imagine that guy's still around. I want to imagine that guy is still with us. He is still here. He is still present among us. And if he is, that guy's got to be the one to come out and say, yo, it's time to push some chips in. Now, I know that Middleton over the weekend did have some, like, I don't know if I'd say they're, like, concerning things to say. But it's kind of brutal. Middleton, I'm going to throw over, this was Tim Kelly from over at On Pattison, got a really good answer out of John Middleton. So I want to throw it over there because this is where there is the short-term and the long-term implications of making these deals at the deadline. And again, the fact that the Phillies went, and they're spending all this money on Robertson right now, which may end up being $12 million. I just saw a thing as I was kind of scrolling through Twitter that it is going to be $12 million. If it is going to be 12, or it is 5, or whoever, whatever the hell it is, I don't care. If you're going to spend all that money, and you're indicating to the fan base that there are no good arms available, that is troubling. But I want to go out to John Middleton because ultimately, it does matter a lot more to him. I mean, Dave Dombrowski might eventually, part ways with the Phillies. It's bound to happen. John Middleton will not part with the Phillies. So there is a little bit more of a longer term vision that has to be had here, I guess. So I want to throw it over to Middleton here really quick. All right, let's go over to John Middleton. And that's a Catholic Nono here with a nice big super chat. Bless your heart, Catholic Nono. We'll get to you in a second. Let's go over to Middleton here, though. Because, I don't know. We'll see if this inspires confidence.
About how you wanted the Phillies to be better at developing talent. Now that you have kind of gotten to that point, how difficult is it to balance? You want to keep those guys, but you're also kind of in maybe the back half of a World Series window.
Well, so I agree with Dave. Some of these players are in the back half of their careers for that window, but there are other players who are in the beginning of their window.
Ruh-roh! Raggy. Ruh-roh. So Middleton points out that some of these guys are at the back end of their primes. Yes, he's looking directly at maybe a JT Realmuto. Maybe he's looking at a Nick Castellanos. Perhaps he's even looking at a Bryce Harper, although you can't say that about Bryce Harper, but it could be true. Is he saying about a Kyle Schwarber? That's where that answer gets really, really interesting. Let's scrub that back a second.
Dave, some of these players are in the back half of their careers for that window, but there are other players.
So when he says the back half of their careers for that window, I think he's talking more about prime. I don't think he's saying that Kyle Schwarber's arms are about to fall off, or that Nick Castellanos is about to have both of his ankles roll in and explode, right? I do think that he's talking about they're at the back half of their career relative to the window. So if you're looking at their career on a timeline, we're going to go all the way over. How the hell am I going to do this? If the timeline is this, right, and the Phillies window to compete with this group is somewhere in here, then yeah, you're in the back half of your career of that window. That maybe gives you an idea, though, why Schwarber hasn't been extended yet. Let's keep going.
Who are in the beginning of their window. And so that's, you got to keep thinking about that. I was talking with Scott Lauber the other day for his podcast, and I just cited the fact that if you go back to 9, 10, and 11 for us, when Ruben was the general manager, he did an extraordinary job. Got Cliff Lee in 09 at the trade deadline, added Pedro shortly after that. After 09 season, in the offseason, he brought in Roy Halladay, extended him, brought in Roy Oswald.
What happened in the middle? What happened in the middle? Remember, why did they bring in Cliff Lee? Because Ruben Amaro didn't want to part with Dominic Brown. He didn't want to part with Kyle Drabeck, who they eventually parted ways with anyway, to go get Roy Halladay. But what happened in between? Hey, John, what happened? Something happened in the middle. I forget. The Phillies had Cliff Lee in 2009, and they went to the World Series, and it looked like, oh, Cliff Lee, good pitcher. Boy, that's exciting. And then they went and they got Roy Halladay. But remind me, in 2010, did we get to watch Cliff Lee and Roy Halladay pitch together in the... Oh, no, they didn't, because Ruben Amaro did a great job. Bullshit. No, he didn't. Let's all go back in the Wayback Machine. I'm going to take you back to your trauma, Phillies fans. Allow me, trigger warning, trauma, Ruben Amaro's tenure as GM. The Phillies had Cliff Lee. They actually had him. He was right here. All right, we're going to use Bucky. They had Cliff Lee, and they said, you know what? We really want to go out and get Roy Halladay. This is Chase Utley, but for this, we really want Roy Halladay. And then people said, oh, can you imagine if you had Cole Hamels along with Cliff Lee and Roy Halladay? Because Cliff Lee almost led your team to a back-to-back World Series against the Yankees. So if you add Roy Halladay to it, well, then you're probably going to go back to a World Series. You might even win it. Hamels and Lee and Halladay. Except that's not what happened, is it? Is it? No, it's not. Because Ruben Amaro in his great job got rid of Cliff Lee. And it left you with Roy Halladay. He was great. But Roy Halladay couldn't get this team up and over the hump and win a World Series either. And then eventually they brought back Cliff Lee, but it was too late. So I'm sorry, I have a very hard time going,
Oh, yeah, Ruben, that was a great time. It was a great time.
now you could make the argument. All right, let's just imagine that I want to buy this bullshit line of thinking, and I'm having a really hard time. Okay, I'm not buying it. Let me just say, let's just imagine we want to believe it for a second, okay? Ruben did a great job restocking the farm system and trying to balance the out window and the in window. Here's the difference. I wouldn't say that in 2009 or even 2010 we were saying, oh, Chase Utley, Jimmy Rollins, Ryan Howard, it's coming to an end. We weren't saying that. We thought that Utley and Rollins still had a lot of productive years. We didn't know that eventually a horrible Achilles tear was going to befall Ryan Howard and effectively end his career. We didn't know that. I'll also point out the fact that this Phillies organization let Jason Worth go, which was a terrible mistake, and got rid of that right-handed protection behind Ryan Howard. I mean, geez, if we're going to go back and relitigate the Ruben Amaro years, good luck. Ruben Amaro seems like a nice guy. Okay, it does. Seems like a good guy. And maybe there were different constraints on him at the time, but we can't go back there and say, oh yeah, that's the gold standard that you want to aspire to right now if you have Dave Dombrowski. We got to stop. We got to stop with that because it wasn't true. But okay, I'm going to go back out to Middleton because now I'm a little bit worked up. I like John Middleton. I don't know what we're doing here.
And at the trading deadline, re-sign Cliff, after 10 during the offseason.
Because Ruben got rid of him.
Brought in Hunter Pence. Every move he made.
Hunter Pence did not work out.
It was an A-plus move. And every player that he brought in performed at a very high level.
Roy Oswalt was fine. Pedro Martinez in 2009 was like a good-ish signing. The wheels fell off, and he was sick in the playoffs. We all remember that. Pedro Martinez looked like, late-life Michael Jackson on the mound. He was white as a ghost. Pedro Martinez, good Dominican man. Not as white as a ghost, normally. He looked very ill on the mound. And he gave it his all, but it didn't work out. So this is very bad revisionist history.
And we still lost. And not only did we not win the World Series, but we exited every year one round earlier than the year before. And then so if you...
Well, that's true. So on a positive note, the Phillies lost in the World Series. And they haven't exactly gone all the way backwards. They're pretty much there. They could miss the playoffs. They won't. They should be fine this year. But at least you don't have them losing a round earlier. What are we doing?
Kind of empty the cupboard. You can do everything right, and you still don't win. It's a bad call. It's a bad break. A bad bounce of a ball. It's some guy who just gets ridiculously hot on the other team and beats you. So those things, you have to take that. You have to weigh all that because we're going to be playing baseball in 5 or 10 years from now, right?
Yeah.
I like John Middleton a lot. Man, hearing this stuff just breaks my heart because then I have to hold him accountable to it. What he's saying on the surface isn't wrong. Yeah, you don't want to push all of your prospect chips into the middle of the table because if, God forbid, an injury does happen to Bryce Harper or to Kyle Schwarber or to both, you're screwed. Okay? And if something goes wrong in the playoffs, Zach Wheeler were to unfortunately get injured, yeah, your playoff hopes are done, and now you've pushed all the chips in, and you're not going to win the World Series. That's fair. But that is the same truth that exists each and every season, and in fairness, each and every offseason. You could have a big-name free agent signing get hurt, and the guy that you thought was going to get you over the hump and get you to a World Series and maybe even win it, that guy could get hurt working out in the offseason. There is inherent risk. That is part of the game. But you can't, when you've made all these moves, and again, to John Middleton's credit, he has opened up the wallet to bring in Harper, Schwarber, Castellanos, Trey Turner. He did that. He did the heavy lifting financially. Re-signed Aaron which he's opened up the wallet for a lot of these guys. But it does kind of feel a little bit bad now that you haven't gotten that ROI on those guys, and now it does kind of feel like there's been a tightening of those finances. Where, like, we shouldn't be having a conversation about what if Kyle Schwarber leaves at the end of this season. We shouldn't have a conversation about what happens if Ranger Suarez leaves at the end of the season. These guys should have been taken care of. This window that you're theoretically looking at should still have like 2, maybe 3 good years left. And right now there are a lot of questions because Schwarber and Suarez are both kind of unaccounted for. And so again, I understand from a neutral footing in a vacuum, those comments are perfectly fine. But then life isn't in a vacuum, is it? Unless you want to count the vacuum of space, in which case, fair point. That's a little bit too macro for me. But John Middleton, man, after all those moves and after all the expectations, it's kind of hard to then say, yeah, baseball in 5 or 10 years. I'm sorry.
And we want the fans to be excited about the team 5 or 10 years from now.
Great. Open up the purse and pay some players in 5 or 10 years. What are we doing right now? What this sounds like is, yeah, we're punting. Yeah, we know that we could like get rid of a bunch of our, top prospects and like actually fortify this team and maybe make a run at a World Series this year, maybe even next year too. But we have to have a team in 5 or 10 years. Draft well. Develop well. Actually get one of the Japanese signings to sign here. Play in that international market. Figure out a way to make some moves that are, viewed as maybe a little bit frugal, but are good moves. Maybe find some success in that bargain barrel hunting that it seems like Dave Dombrowski's been trying to browse for a while. Make those moves that make people go, wonder what they're thinking there. And you identified a player that no one thought had the upside that he ultimately did. It's hard work. That's part of sports. But to effectively like pour cold water on the fan base right now and say like, yeah, I get it. People want to win, but like we have to worry about 5 or 10 years. That's not the John Middleton we all like. That's not the John Middleton that I dare say Phillies fans have loved. That doesn't sound like John Middleton at all. That sounds like a corporate suit. And I don't believe John Middleton's a corporate suit. I believe he does care about this team and these fans and the possibility of winning a World Series. I don't like these comments. These upset me. John, if you're watching, and I know you are, I believe in you. Phillies fans, believe in you. Don't tell us about 5 or 10 years from now. We'll get there when we get there. Some of us might not even see 5 to 10 years from now. I mean, we're just being honest. Maximize the opportunity now in front of you. Otherwise, we're going to look. It's actually kind of fitting that he mentioned 9, 10, 11. If John Middleton isn't willing to give the approval to push those chips in and fortify this roster and go after it this year, we're going to look back at these last 2 or 3 seasons the same way that a lot of us do look at 9, 10, and 11. Missed opportunities. We're going to look back on the Phillies didn't fortify that bullpen. They didn't get that last bat they needed in the outfield, and they fell short yet again. The Diamondbacks is one thing. Losing the Astros, the cheating Astros, whatever, that sucked. Losing to the Diamondbacks hurt. Losing to the Mets was a disgrace. Whatever this will end up being, if you don't get another bat and another bullpen arm, we're going to look back on it the same way. We're going to look at the 3-year window and say, geez, man, like all you had to do is push in the chips a little bit and have an actual shot. Otherwise, like, what was the point of like kind of, pulling it out and dropping it on the table and getting Harper and Schwarber and Castellanos and Trey Turner? What was the point if now when it's time for the rubber to meet the road, you say, you know what, we have to worry about 5 to 10 years from now? I don't like that. I don't like it. I don't respect it. We'll keep going.
And to do that, you can't just trade everybody and say, well, and by the way, some players you think we should be getting, they're not going to be available. And other players you want us to get, they're going to be available, and it's going to be an arm and a leg, and we're going to say no. I mean, we had that problem last year with Crochet at the trade deadline. We made a spectacularly good offer. So good that Dave looked at me at one point and he said, I don't know that I should be doing this. And he said, you know what, I'm ambivalent. If they take the deal, great. If they don't take the deal, great. I'm really happy with keeping the guys we were going to give them.
I mean, that's pretty interesting, by the way, to go on the record about a player who's not under contract with your team. But that is You need to try to trust us and believe us. That I do respect that part of it. I don't know if you're allowed to do that. I don't know if there's going to be it's not really a tampering thing, but to comment on a player that's not under contract with your team and say, hey, we made a really great offer for Crochet and they didn't take it. That's interesting.
That's the way I was. And I think, so you have to balance that. And look, he's got 40 years in the business and nobody's perfect. Nobody makes every call right, but he's made a lot of them really well. And so you just have to trust Dave to kind of think this through.
And that's why I'm going to go over to the Russ Joy Show YouTube channel right now, and I'm going to start a poll. And I want to know, honestly, from the people over on YouTube, do you, quote unquote, trust Dave? Do you trust Dave to get the job done? I just want to know where the people are at right now. And then, in a little bit, we'll come back. We'll reveal the results of the poll. And then for John Middleton, when he's watching the show later, whenever he watches the show, I'll give him the real-time feedback. I think it'll actually give the feedback on the rewatch. But I don't think that people are going to be thrilled. Now, I'm not positive, and I don't want to influence the viewership here. But I'm pretty sure that this is not going to be a resounding 85% yes, we trust Dave. But we'll find out here pretty soon. This is the beauty of, voting on the polls. So, okay. I want to bring this back to one succinct thought, okay? The Phillies have a legitimate opportunity in front of them. Now, I've said since last offseason, they needed bullpen help, they needed outfield help. They didn't get either. Kepler's been a disaster. Alvarado getting himself suspended earlier this season was a disaster. They have ways to patchwork it, whether it's Luzardo, maybe it is Suarez, to go to the bullpen in the playoffs. I don't love it, but it's okay. You can maybe make it work. If we are already 10 days out from the trade deadline, making excuses about why moves might not happen, players you think should be available aren't going to be available. That's fair. Players that are available are going to cost an arm and a leg. Well, that is how trades work, and that's the problem with waiting until the trade deadline to make a move. That's part of the problem with, when you don't make a move in the offseason because you're happy with your team, you do get into these situations where you're kind of leveraged against. You're kind of in a bad spot if you're the Phillies. Bullpen arms and outfielders that are going to make an impact, they're going to be at a premium. They're going to cost you a lot. The inactiveness, the inactivity, the lack of actual sizable additions in any meaningful way in the offseason, it's kind of rearing its ugly head now. 10 days out from the trade deadline. This is Dave Dombrowski's mess. And if we're to believe John Middleton, he at least seems to believe that they're going to be able to fix it. He believes in Dave. The question is, should anyone? Poll results. Now, again, this has only been up for 2 minutes. 79% of respondents say they do not trust Dave. So, John, when you're going back and watching the show later, I just want you to remember that's where people landed. Now, I gave a shout out earlier because Catholic Nono, great Catholic Nono, left a $10 super chat. So we're going to go over to Catholic Nono, and then we're going to continue on with the conversation. Thank you, Catholic Nono. Thank you. Says, if Robertson is all they get, then they failed in the opening round, and then they don't re-sign Schwarber, the team will lose a lot of cachet they've built up over the past 5 years. Here's the unfortunate thing, and he's right. All of those things are realistic outcomes. They're all realistic possibilities. There is nothing in Catholic Nono's super chat there that I would say is far from a realistic possibility. Could they lose in the opening round? Yeah, we watched them get their asses kicked by the Mets in the playoffs last year. Could they not re-sign Schwarber? Yeah, they could ultimately not re-sign Schwarber. What makes you think now they're any more likely to re-sign Schwarber than they were in the offseason or in spring training or through the first half of the season? Nothing. I mean, you almost have to hope that you win a World Series and Schwarber's like, oh, the vibes are great. I'll take 30-ish million and I'll come back because I want to run it back. If they get their asses kicked in the first round again, if they get bounced like in a wild card or something, I don't know why he would come back. So all of these things are realistic, and Catholic Nono's right. That means they would lose a lot of cachet with the fan base. I think that for all of the honesty that Middleton tried to go to the media with over the weekend, some of those comments almost immediately make you lose cachet as well. We don't want to hear about 5 or 10 years from now. This is a top sports media market. This is a top sports team market. This is a top market for free agents in virtually every sport. Unless the wheels fall off in a truly horrific way, this Phillies team should be around the playoffs in 5 years, around the playoffs in 10 years. There's no excuse for a team like the Phillies in this kind of market to fall out of the playoffs for an extended period, which, in fairness, they did. They did fall out of the playoffs. They did fall out of the playoff conversation for a good long while. And Bryce Harper, to his credit, has been a large catalyst for turning this whole franchise back around and almost making it feel like that 08 to 11 era. Learn from the sins of the past. Don't be doomed to repeat them. We all look back at that Cliff Lee trade that came in conjunction with bringing in Roy Halladay. We all look back at that as the fatal flaw, the thing that killed the 10 and 11 opportunities, the 2010 opportunity. Could have gotten back to another World Series. You might have won it if you had Lee and Halladay, and then you tried to correct it and bring him back for the 11 season, and it just ultimately didn't work out. Don't do that with this window. We can look back on this. Like, there is a way to look back on this era a decade from now and say, hey, the Phillies got to a World Series. They tried to add to it. Remember, they brought in Trey Turner. Remember, they made sure that Zach Wheeler was taken care of until he was ready to hang up the cleats. Like, there was a way to do it. Oh, yeah, I remember. Oh, you guys remember Justin Crawford? Oh, yeah. Whatever happened to that guy? Remember Andrew Painter? Oh, yeah, he was supposed to be an ace. You know who else was supposed to be an ace? Kyle Drabek was supposed to be an ace. We were all told that Kyle Drabek was like a pretty much guaranteed bona fide number one. Would he ever reach the level of Roy Halladay? There were some people back on the Phillies message board way back in the day, the message board days on the Phillies website, that seemed to believe that Kyle Drabek was going to be as good or better than Roy Halladay. Those people were crazy. They've probably been locked up and put into an asylum at this point. But those people were out there. Yes, there are prospects that will develop, and you will ultimately feel burned that you traded them and you should have kept them, and that the return didn't end up being as good or better than the prospect that you got rid of. But sometimes those prospects ultimately just end up being prospects, and they never do blossom. And if you have an opportunity at this trade deadline to bring in that bullpen arm, to bring in that outfielder, to bring in that bat that can actually help, and you choose not to do it, this is going to be bad. This will probably be looked at even more negatively than the Ruben Amaro decision to trade Cliff Lee. And the worst part is they have a historical precedent for it. We can point to that Cliff Lee trade and say that's when it died. That was the missed opportunity. This Phillies organization has the ability to look at that and say we're not going to let that happen to us. Okay, I'm done. Catholic Nona says Amaro was such a good GM he went to Boston to become a first base coach. Jamie Rollo's right. Says we cannot waste these Harper and Wheeler years. I agree. Catholic Nona here with a good point, and it's an interesting one. I think Wheeler sent a message to upper management when he announced he is retiring after his contract is up. A shot across the bow. I don't know if that's exactly what that was, but I do like the idea. I do like the idea that maybe that was Wheeler kind of saying, like, look, I'm only pitching like 2 more years, so like, are we doing this or not? I do kind of like it. Catholic Nona here also says Romano, disaster. Kepler, disaster. Joe Ross, yeah, it's not good. Poonugs says worrying about having an exciting team 5 to 10 years from now sounds like a team that's rebuilding. It does. That's a big problem. K-Dub says the whole point of bringing in Harper and the rest was to win a ring. Not doing everything possible to ensure that now seems ridiculous. I agree. Jim G says, do the Phillies have scouts that go below the U.S. border? I don't know. I don't know the last time that we could actually come back and say, yo, remember that there was a prospect that they found in Latin America. There was a prospect they found in the Caribbean who blossomed and became an all-star. It's not great. Ford says, I think the window's closed already. Chris Freed says, you play to win the game. It's true. Jim G almost thinks that maybe we should absolve Dave Dombrowski of his sins and says it could be more Middleton saying no more big contracts. If that's the case, man, that's a disaster class. Legitimately a disaster class. Okay, now we spent a lot more time on that than I anticipated, but that's okay. I want to imagine that the Phillies are going to do the right thing. I don't know if they will, but I want to imagine that they will because I would like to be able to get into a Red October and to do it in earnest. Remember last year, I did not get into Red October. I saw the signs. The signs were there. The lack of killer instinct, the lack of ability to knock the Mets out before they could even qualify for the playoffs. They didn't do it. And once they got into that playoff round, I was out in Vegas watching it, and I was just like, this is bad. This is bad. They're screwed. I'd like this Phillies team to make a deep run. I would like for these investments in Harper and the cast to not be in vain. Go out. Get another arm. Get another bat. Make it look like you care. That's what people are looking for. All right. Video guy Amadeus here says he's a damn billionaire. Spend your damn money. That is correct. All right, now, that was a lot. I did mention earlier, too, that Bryce Harper had something to say. Because Bryce Harper pretty clearly believes that Kyle Schwarber should come back. He very clearly seems to believe that, this should have been handled already, and it has not been handled yet. And so we're going to go out to Bryce Harper from over the weekend because Harper was asked specifically about Kyle Schwarber's future. And now remember, Harper's your guy. He's your big investment. He's the guy that you've built this team around. He's the guy that has been credited by people like me as being the one who's signing kind of signaled things were going to get better. The Phillies were going to go back to the playoffs. They were going to be a World Series contender. Let's hear from Bryce Harper, and let's see if he minces his words about Kyle Schwarber and him being a Philly.
This clubhouse over the last 4 years would be hard to imagine him just not being here over the next few years.
Yeah, I mean, I think management knows that. I think Domino knows that as well. They're going to make the best decision for our team, and if he's in those plans, obviously he should be here. He's been great for us. He's our leader. He's the guy that talks on the bus and everything else, right? He's one of the best teammates I've ever been around.
We have it. Why did the video die?
He's relaxed every day, and he understands what it's like to be a big leaguer, and he comes up in those moments and those opportunities, and he comes through every single time. So, like I said, he's one of the best teammates I've ever been around, and one of the better guys I've ever played with. So, I can't see him in any other uniform, and I think he deserves to be here.
So there's your leader. There's your big money guy. There's the guy that you built the team around, extolling the virtues of this player who's a pending unrestricted free agent, a guy who should be signed here longer term, a guy that you should have opened up the purse and paid last offseason or during spring training or during the first half of the year. So there is a small question on my part of, is this actually Kyle Schwarber? Is the reason that Schwarber's not signed because of Schwarber? Schwarber's a smart guy. Did he look at the offseason the same way that I did and the same way that a lot of people did and say, wow, this doesn't look like a team that's actually going to go for it? This doesn't seem like a team that's all in the way that they were a couple of years ago. Does Schwarber look at it and say, you know what? I can either play out the rest of my career with a bunch of guys that I do like here on a team that's not going to make it back to a World Series, or do I take the next 2 years or 3 years, maybe being a DH, still having this power, and do I go to a team that's up and coming or a team that's one big hitter away from being a World Series favorite? There is part of me that wonders, did the Phillies blow their chance? Did their inability to get this guy signed 2 years ago, last year, last offseason, did that get viewed as almost like a disrespect? And if so, it's going to be hard to bring him back. It's going to be hard to convince him to sign. There's a cascading effect. When you have a player that has been viewed as positively as Schwarber has, and you don't get the deal done, there is a cascading effect. And you do run the risk of offending the player. And you could get on your high horse and say, it's just a player. Why do we care for offending? He's a multimillionaire. It does matter. If you're trying to woo the guy, you're trying to bring him back, it does matter. I do worry a little bit that the Phillies kind of screwed the pooch on this one. And I could be wrong. It's entirely possible. I've been wrong before. Not often, but I've been wrong before. I would love to be a fly on the wall. I'd love to know who has been responsible for holding up the possibility of Schwarber being here for a few more years. Now, all of this kind of also comes at the same time where we look and we say, Schwarber is still crushing the ball. He's still doing exactly what you expect him to do. But there is a little bit of good news. And I know that there's been a lot of railing on the Phillies. There's been a lot of railing against the questionable decision-making in the front office. It is worth noting that Bryce Harper has been very, very good. And especially in the last series against the Angels, he was phenomenal. 3 home runs across 3 games, 6 RBI, multi-hit games in 2 out of 3 games. Bryce Harper was exactly what you need him to be. Now, there is still that question out there about his power going to the opposite field and that less torque that you're putting on your wrist by not pushing, but sending the ball to the opposite field. And they were talking about it on the telecast. I think it was during the Padres series. It might have been at the start of the Angels series. Just about that extra torque that's put on your wrist as you're pulling the ball. Is it a point of concern? No. Well, yes and no. As I've been saying for a long time, and I'm not breaking any news here. As long as Bryce Harper can look anything like an all-star, you're in really good shape as the Phillies. If he could somehow bounce back to like MVP form, you're in great shape. But if he's going to be a guy who hits like 230 and has very little ability to like drive the ball into the gap, let alone hit it over the fence, then you're significantly screwed. I would like to look at the series against the Angels and say, oh, no, that's a really good sign. Good things are coming for Bryce Harper. It does feel like there's a little bit more hope. I will tell you that after that Angels series, I have more hope for Bryce Harper and for his ability to kind of get back to form than I did pretty much at any point this season. And that includes before he went on the IL, and that includes obviously the last time that he came off after resting the elbow, resting the wrist. I want to believe that Bryce Harper is going to be the guy that you want him to be. I wouldn't put all of my eggs in that basket, but there have been positive signs recently. Ford says, in fairness, I've said the Phillies are cooked with this iteration for a few years now. In fairness. I don't think I've been saying in fairness that many times today. In fairness. Joe Papel says, since Houston came into Citizens Bank Park in the World Series and took 2 of 3, Phillies have lost a lot of playoff games at Citizens Bank Park. Well, we'll see. I love this one, though. Chris Fried, I know where this is going. Hope is a dangerous thing. Can drive a man insane. Shawshank Redemption. Good call. Last thing I want to get to today. Now, I do have a couple of other things that I sort of had queued up. I'm actually going to go to one of them really quickly. It has nothing to do with Philly sports, but it does have to do with, if you're an Eagles fan, you're going to love this. Jerry Jones took a shit all over Micah Parsons. Why? No one knows. Jerry Jones went out publicly and effectively said, yeah, we signed Micah Parsons for a lot of money, but the guy does get hurt, so we might not actually have him. Like, we have him under contract, but we might not have him on the field. If you need to brighten your day, there is a little bit of schadenfreude in this, but let's just go out to Jerry. Man, I love when Jerry Jones talks these days. It's pretty much always shitting on his own team. All right, let's go out to Jerry. Jerry, what do you think about Micah Parsons?
Just because we signed him doesn't mean we're going to have him. He was hurt 6 games last year. Seriously. We've signed, I remember signing a player for the highest paid at the position in the league, and he got knocked out 2/3 of the year, Dak Prescott. So there's a lot of things you can think about when you, just as the player does, when you're thinking about committing and guaranteeing money.
Jerry Jones is angry. He is old. And he's getting a little bit bitter. And the old man bitters are starting to come out to public. I mean, he just did a drive-by on Micah Parsons and a drive-by on Dak Prescott. But the sad reality for him is he still has those players. How does that make you feel as a player? Yeah, you're getting millions from this guy. That's not a vote of confidence. If you're Dak Prescott today, do you feel any better? If you're Micah Parsons right now, do you feel any better? Oh, and by the way, he played for the Cowboys, and they're largely irrelevant. So, woof. Woof. Chris Reed says Jerry needs to fully focus on the alleged strippers in Dallas. Woof. Yeah, we're officially at woof. I did have another topic that I thought about going to. I might go to it later in the week. It had to do with something that came out over the weekend at the WNBA All-Star Game. We're not going to go that way today. I think we spent a lot of time, and I'm looking at the time right now, and I'm realizing I think it's probably best left until maybe until Wednesday's show. We'll see if it's still got any juice left in it by the time we get there. So I do want to get to the final point. The final point is a really simple one. And if you're a Philadelphia Flyers fan, it's something that you might have expected and you might not have expected. Porter Martone is going to not compete for a spot with the Philadelphia Flyers in training camp. Porter Martone has effectively taken himself out of the running. He is going to be going to college. The thing that is surprising to some, as we pull it up here, is where Porter Martone is going to college. Because up until today, many people have thought, oh, he's going to Penn State. He's going to go play with Gavin McKenna. And when Gavin McKenna signed, it was, oh boy, imagine Gavin McKenna and Porter Martone playing together. And then, of course, you got the people who are like, oh, the Flyers need to tank again. They need to go after Gavin McKenna. Well, what better way to do it than by getting Martone and McKenna a full year under their belts? And, hey, maybe if the Flyers end up with the 5th pick, McKenna could say, I really want to go play with Martone, so I don't want to sign with one of the top 4 teams. I'll sit out my 3 years. I'll just go make NIL money. I won't even sign the ELC. No. So Porter Martone isn't going to Penn State. He's going to Michigan State. He's staying in the Big Ten, but he is not going to play with Gavin McKenna at Penn State. And I know that this upset some people. I know that there are a lot of Penn State people who are very upset. Oh, boo-hoo. Boo fucking who, Penn State. You don't get Porter Martone. You just got Gavin McKenna. You got the top prospect in all of hockey. You have the next generational talent. I think you're going to survive. Now, if you're a Flyers fan, would you have liked to have had Porter Martone closer playing at Penn State? Yes. If you're somebody like me who grew up in the coal region where, like, you're not exactly, like, committed fully to rooting for Penn State all the time, but, like, there weren't any schools in the coal region that are going to get you really hyped up. Maybe you have a little bit of an allegiance to Penn State. Maybe you go, hey, there are no particularly great college hockey programs in the greater Philadelphia area, so you go, all right, yeah, I'll root for Penn State. Maybe you wanted Porter Martone to go there. Maybe you're one of the sickos who's like, oh, yeah, Porter Martone, he's going to be able to get Gavin McKenna to, like, drop to number 25 next year, drop to 20 next year to the Flyers. And it wasn't going to happen. Martone going to college is the best possible outcome. I know that I was on this show. I know that on this show I said, I love the mentality. I love the mentality of Porter Martone saying, I want to make the Flyers. I want to come into camp. I want to compete. I want to make the Philadelphia Flyers. There's a chance that he could have. Now, this has a whole bunch of different implications, and maybe it points to a couple of things. Martone said over on Snow the Goalie, which you can find wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, he did say that he was going to have a conversation, he and his agent and the Flyers get a real feel for whether or not he'd have a chance to make the team. We know that the Tyson Forster injury is out there. There are conflicting reports on, will he be ready for the start of the season? Will he not be ready until January? Could there be word internally that Forster's injury isn't as bad as initially feared, and maybe he'll be ready for the start of the season, or maybe he'll be ready a month into the season? If so, maybe that does kind of hurt Porter Martone's chances of getting legitimate playing time with the Flyers. It is widely believed that, like, Alex Bump has an inside track to make the team. If there's really truly only one spot available for Bump or Martone, does Martone want to go through a full camp and then not even be eligible to play in college? Like, you have to think of it like this. If you're Porter Martone and your choices are go into training camp, try to make the Flyers, ultimately not make it, and go play in junior for whatever the hell peanuts they play for in junior, and then maybe come up at the end of the season, sign your ELC, all that. Or go to college, dominate in college, like do a great job playing for Michigan State, get NIL money, which he certainly is going to get NIL money to go play for Michigan State. Will he make $300,000, $400,000? Could he make $6, $7? Who the hell knows? I have to imagine that there are going to be some donors that are going to Open up the pocketbooks, we'll say, for Porter Martone. If he's going to make six figures, mid to high six figures to go play in college, and then, by the way, once Michigan State season is over, sign his ELC and either, hopefully join the Flyers in the midst of a playoff push, or, worst case, join the Phantoms as they try to pursue a spot in the playoffs. There are worse things. Like, if we're all being honest, would you rather have to go play junior after missing out on the Flyers, play for peanuts, and then hopefully try to make the team at the end of the year, or go to fucking college, a Big Ten college, be a big man on campus, be the big NIL signing for Michigan State's hockey team, go have fun, live it up a year in college, develop there, which, by the way, I think the development at Michigan State is probably going to be better than just about any junior team you would have gone to, and then still get to sign your ELC, be a year closer to getting that actual big money once the ELC's up, and either join the Flyers to end the season, maybe even playoffs, or go to the Phantoms and go on a run there. I think we'd all take the latter. If you're somebody who's sitting out there worrying about what does this mean? Is Porter Martone upset with the Flyers? I saw the bullshit this morning. Knew it was going to happen. Oh, well, remember, Cutter Gauthier. Well, he thought he was going to have a spot with the Flyers, and when they didn't guarantee him that spot, he bolted. I'll actually pull up, because the guy tweeted at me this morning, and I'll pull up the quote that he selected, because I knew that somebody was going to go here, and I felt gross. Here is the quote. This is a quote from Danny Briere way back when on Cutter Gauthier. We told him about our vision and what we see moving forward, and he had a discussion with his advisor and family, and they decided it was better for him to go back for another year, which I really don't have a problem with. That's what Briere said as interim GM at his season-ending press conference. This is before he got the official gig full-time. This is after the Chuck Fletcher firing, when Chuck Fletcher got booed at a season ticket holder event. So I saw people trying to draw the parallel. Oh, this is Cutter Gauthier 2.0. Porter Martone going to college is evidence that the Flyers couldn't close the deal. They couldn't get Porter Martone to go all in with them in training camp. No, that's not what this is. Totally different situation. You know what Cutter Gauthier didn't have waiting for him, at least legally? Mid to high six-figure offer in NIL money to go play in the Big Ten. It's a pretty big deal. If we're being fair. Again, would you rather go to junior, make nothing, and then hope to make a team at the end of the year, or six figures, Big Ten, college life, play at the end of the year? We're all going to go to college in that scenario, unless you are truly insane. You're going to go take the money. You're going to chase the bag. I would expect that Martone is going to bulk up. He's going to look very good at Michigan State. And by the way, he's going to be playing with a guy who was drafted number 48 overall, who also was drafted by the Flyers. They're going to be playing together at Michigan State. So if you're upset that Porter Martone's not going to go play with Gavin McKenna, who's not going to be his future teammate, can't we look at the flip side of it and say, he and the number 48 overall pick are going to go play together? That's a good thing. And by the way, that number 48 overall pick played for Michigan State last year. So now he's going to be able to show Porter Martone the ropes of the college lifestyle, about playing in college, about what that whole thing entails. It's a good thing. And that's chemistry, by the way. That's good chemistry you could potentially build between those players. And that, maybe a few years from now, they're both playing for the Flyers, and you go, pretty good foundational experience there. JH over here says Martone absolutely isn't William Cutter 2.0. Cutter was upset and bitter that Danny didn't beg him to play for the Flyers like his college coach did. His ego is way too big and isn't backed up with skill. I think Gauthier is going to be a good player. I wouldn't say that he's not a skilled player. He's a good player. But I get it. Casual Warzone guy says the Flyers are not making the playoffs. We need to get that asinine notion out of our heads. This team is not good enough. They made a slight improvements on a team that finished fourth to last. Unless Sam Harrison is going to have a tragedy happen, Goaltending is going to be better this year. It almost has to be. Vladar might not be incredible, but he's got to be better than the Kolosov-Fedotov mess. Those two together, with any kind of health, have to be better than Sam Ersson in and out of the lineup with 4 groin injuries. Like, that has to get better. And if that happens, you're in a much better position. And oh, by the way, the power play can't be worse than what Rocky Thompson was running. And if that's the case, you're going to pick up quite a few more wins. And I would like to, if you're going to be a real positive Paulie here and you say, all right, give me one ridiculous take that might end up being true. Couturier is another year removed from the back surgery. That doesn't mean that I think he's ever going to go back to being prime, Selke candidate Sean Couturier. But you also have a coach in Rick Tocchet who knows I can't run the guy into the ground like Torts did. Add all those things up, there are more wins to be had. I'm not saying that they're going to be the 4th seed in the Eastern Conference. They might end up being just on the outside looking in at the playoffs. They might just be on the inside looking out when the playoffs come around. I don't know yet. But I still think they're closer to being a fringe playoff team than being back in the lottery. Truly, that's where I think they are, at least right now. Let's see. I saw some other things over here. Tony Lewis says casual. I don't understand why people think it's a playoff team. They look all right at Ford, but their defense stinks. Other than Sanheim, it's a bunch of question marks. The defense is passable, maybe. I don't love the blue line. Risto's probably not going to be healthy or ready to start the year. That's bad, very bad. Even when he's back, if he plays pretty well, he's still at best like a second pair defenseman. Drysdale had a good end of the year. He might be okay. Emil Andre, I like to believe the guy's okay. Cam York, I'm not a big believer. He's certainly better than a third pair defenseman. I don't know. Let's see. King Alfred's U.S. descendant says, how many playoff series have the Penguins won since Tocchet left the coaching staff? Same as the Flyers. I do not think we can underestimate Tocchet's communication skills and players buying in. I also have to give King Alfred's U.S. descendant a shout out. I met him last week. I did. I was invited to a thing by some friends, and this guy walks up to me and he says, "Oh, yes." And I said, "Oh, no. I don't do well when I meet people who actually watch or listen to these shows. I tend to just believe that the numbers I see on YouTube and Facebook and X are not real and that the people aren't real. And even the ones who comment in the comment section across all the platforms, which I'm going to restore down here on the bottom of the screen, I still have a hard time believing that people, for whatever reason, like to listen to the things that I do." And so it was very nice to meet King Alfred's U.S. descendant, who also gave me the background on the name, which was actually a pretty cool story. So anyway, nice to meet you, King Alfred's U.S. descendant. Kyle Adams says, the Metro outside of Carolina is open. It's not insane to think they make the playoffs. That's what I agree with. I thought the Eastern Conference sucked last year. I thought the Met was pretty bad. And I don't think a lot of teams have done a lot to dramatically improve their odds of making a Stanley Cup. So do that, a little bit better goaltending, certainly better power play. Play for a coach that they don't actively fucking hate all the time. Yeah, I think that the Flyers are going to be better than they were last year. So, Poonugs says when it was Hart and Ersson, they were playoff bound. That's true. Still remains to be seen what's going to happen with Hart. It won't be here. If he ultimately gets acquitted, I think he'll be in the NHL within a year. But it won't be here. We'll see. Let's see. Casual Warzone guy says, people acting like goaltending is the only reason we missed the playoffs. That's not the truth. They had so many long stretches where they couldn't score. That's also true. But again, the power play sucked. The power play was non-existent. It was a powerless play. And the guys hated playing for the coach. There's going to be a new coach bump here. I'm like pretty freaking convinced. Poonugs also says all the Eastern teams suck because they want Gavin McKenna. Could be true. We'll find out. All right. I'm ready to wrap for the rest of today. If that's okay with everybody. I am ready to wrap. I've got to go chase the kids around upstairs. So I'll be back on Wednesday. We got to touch on all kinds of Phillies stuff. We laughed with Jerry Jones or at Jerry Jones, whichever way you want to go. Talked about Porter Martone. I think we had a pretty successful show today. So a big thank you to everybody who tuned in live on Facebook, YouTube, and X. Do me a favor. I know that we get to the end of the show and it's Russ says the same thing every time. Liking this video really does help. It truly does. This YouTube channel, that was at like 400 subscribers at the end of 2024 is now over 1,400. Just, almost 7 months into 2025. There's legitimate growth here, which is really cool. And some people might snicker on the outside and say 1,400 subscribers is nothing to brag about. I brag about it. I'm very proud of this show, and I'm very grateful for everybody who supports it. One easy, free way for you to do that is by clicking the like button. If you feel so moved by the spirit to share it to a friend, a family member, an ex-girlfriend, an ex-boyfriend, whoever, that also helps. It's just good for the YouTube. And it goes, ooh, highly engaged with episode. Those things are good. If you see a clip of the show pop up, like that as well. If you see something short form content wise on YouTube, hit it with a like. Subscribing to the channel is really helpful. If you're over on TikTok, which has now, I think, exceeded our following on YouTube, give the TikTok stuff a like. Give it a like on Instagram, all that kind of stuff. It really does help. I do truly appreciate each and every one of you. I am 6 hours away from getting to 24 hours on this fast. By the time we talk on Wednesday, one of a few things will happen. If I have somehow made it to Wednesday still fasting, and it's an afternoon show, I will probably be somewhere close to 6 hours within 72 hours. If that happens, I have no idea what the show's going to look like on Wednesday. Will I be irritable? Will I be unhinged? Will I reach another plane of existence and be able to make vibrations in the air and make a frequency or something that allows me to travel to interstellar space? I don't think so. But if I can, I'll show it off on Wednesday. We'll see if it happens. I do think I'm going to get to 24 hours. I'm pretty sure I'm going to be able to hold out, no food today, and I'm going to wake up tomorrow 36 hours into a fast. And if that happens, 72 seems somewhat doable. So Amadeo says you'll be a skeleton. From your lips to the ears of God. Man, it'd be good to lose a few pounds here. I'd feel pretty good about it. Greg Bondarenko's right. Anything goes on Wednesday show. All right, and until Wednesday, this has been the Russ Joy Show. I've been Russ Joy, but you knew that already because you're smart. It's also the name of the show. Like, share, subscribe, and if you listen to the podcast feed, leave a 5-star review or rating on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and listen on Amazon Music or Pandora or wherever else. Okay. Talk to all of you here Wednesday on the Russ Joy Show.